for people who have not had access to somebody like you, how
Mhm.
could they tell the difference between somebody who's the real deal and somebody who's not?
Really good question. So, a psychic who is the real deal will not fish for information. So there's a very big difference. If you go to, I will come to the ones who put on the stupid voices afterwards. Um, there are ones who do that as well, which is beyond me. But a few things you want to look out for. So when you go for a reading, it is very important that you're open-minded. If you go in very defensive, very closed off, even somebody who's really experienced will have trouble connecting with you. So it's important that you're open-minded. But that being said, when you go in for a reading, you're kind of gauging the reader as well. So if you go in and you sit down and the reader starts asking you a lot of questions like, oh, so are you currently working, or are you studying, or do you have a boyfriend, or oh, so you just had a breakup, and they will read you, they will read your face. It's kind of they'll start asking those questions. No. If a reader starts with, oh, are you working, or are you studying, oh, what are you studying, or how long have you got left? No, that's their job. So when they start with that, you know instinctively that they're just fishing for information. And then what they're going to do is they're going to read your reactions to things, the looks on your face, to then know if they're on the right path or not. A reader who is good may ask you, for example, what area you want to focus on, or if you've got any particular questions you want to look at. But they will give you information that they couldn't have known.
Yeah.
So they may turn around to you if they're a medium, for example. They'll have somebody come through, and like my experience, my example earlier of William. It's like saying, right, I've got someone here by the name of William who passed away in a car accident, this, that, the other. So it's only information you would know. If they're not a medium, they may turn around to you and go, which has happened to me in the past, you'll suddenly get severe pain somewhere and go, have you been in a lot of pain with your shoulder? Or have you been in a lot of pain with whatever because you're feeling it? Or they'll tell you certain information and then they'll ask you. So once they've given you the information, then they'll say to you, does that make sense? It's very different. They give you the information first, then they ask you to confirm, as opposed to ask you the questions first. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because when I think back to some of the people that have been the most accurate, one woman talked for 45 minutes, and she was channeling an entity, so her voice did change, but
Mhm.
she didn't ask me any questions at all. And I had three readings with her 8 years apart, and every time she picked up where she left off from the previous one. And I'm sorry, for the $100 an hour she was charging, there is no way she went back to re-listen to the recording. It wouldn't have been worth it for her. So I had this sense, and there was one other one. I don't think I even told you this about this one. A couple months ago, I was in Germany at an event, and
Mhm.
the people who had sponsored this thing, it was at this spa thing. They brought in a palm reader, and I think I may have only had that happen like once. And I thought, okay, I'm interested in different people who get information from different sources. And so I waited in line, and it turned out I was the very last person that the woman saw. But I also found out that she only spoke German. And so I, communicated enough to be able to say, can I record it, which she was fine with. But there was no way she was reading me because I didn't I mean, I'm learning German, but I didn't understand 95% of what she said.
Yeah.
When I went back and had it transcribed, the information she gave was incredible. She said you had two near-death health scares, and she like went into detail about that, and like things that went way beyond the typical nonsense that people attribute to the fakes out there.
Yeah.
It was really wild because I'm sorry, you can't convince me that she was reading my reactions when I didn't know what she was saying. That to me is like the ultimate test.
100%. This is it. You can tell the real ones from the fake ones, and you can tell the good ones from the fake ones. Um, Another kind of pet peeve that I have, which you will also find, and this is another thing you can look out for when you have a reading. if you go to somebody and you want, for example, mediumship, and the person that you go to isn't a medium, they're just, say, tarot card reader, and they go, oh yeah, yeah, no, let me see what I can do, and they kind of, they fake it, they do what they can to kind of go along with it, if that makes sense. They're not getting the information that you need, they're not giving you pretty much anything, but they're doing it for the sake of it because they want to get paid. Whereas somebody who will sit there and go, well, actually, do you know what, that's not my area, I'm really sorry, I don't mean to let you down, but it's not my area, I don't feel it's fair to you to pay that for something you're not going to get, I'd rather you go to this person, or they signpost you to the right person. That's another sign again. So if it's something that you've gone to somebody and it's not their area of forte or experience, but they're just going to flag it or wing it because they want to get paid, again, that's another indicative of somebody who's a fake. The same as, especially in this line of work, we often see a lot of people who are psychologically very unwell. Um,
Imagine that.
hmm?
I said, imagine that.
Yeah. Hi. I have a funny story with that, actually. That's just reminded me. I had someone will make you laugh. I had a reading ages ago. So I used to work somewhere else in London for, I used to subcontract work from there. And I had a guy come in, and very nice guy, and he sat down, I started reading for him, and Fred starts laughing. So I'm like, why are you laughing? So he's like, oh, tell me, I want to know about work. So I start doing it, and Fred's giggling away, and he keeps calling him Sigmund Freud. I'm like, why are you calling him Sigmund Freud? Like, mentally, I'm going, why are you calling him Sigmund Freud? He goes, he's a psychiatrist. So I looked at the guy and I went, you're a psychiatrist. And he almost fell off his chair. And he went, how did you know that? So I said, the voice in my head told me. And then I couldn't stop laughing because Fred goes, I paid you to listen to the voices in your head. And I looked at him and I started laughing. And he was like, why are you laughing? And I went, you see, if I came to you and said, I hear voices, you'd medicate me, but you've paid money to hear what the voices in my head are telling me to tell you. It's kind of kind of ironic.
That's really funny. I love it. No wonder he was giggling. The ultimate.
It's actually, he was really happy with reading. He came back a few times afterwards. So yeah, but it just made me laugh. I was like, okay. But yeah, the psychological side of it, that's another thing that you'll see.
Yeah.
So if you get, I've had a lot of people over the years that, and it's really heartbreaking, and I can't help them because it's not my area. So I I wouldn't feel comfortable that somebody's paid money for something that I can't help them with. I'd rather signpost them to the right person and they get the help that they need, or even, even if I can facilitate that, put them in touch with the right person. But
Yeah.
that's another way of telling. If you see that a particular psychic reads absolutely everybody, or the other one that, again, another bugbear of mine, is where you will get psychics who will reach out to individuals. This happens a lot on social media, or so I'm hearing, where they'll reach out and say, "Oh, I've had this message for you. Pay me X amount of money, and I'll give you the information."
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that again is another way of seeing, when you get stuff like that, you can tell. So those are the things I'd say watch out for.
Yeah. No, it's sad that they did, because I remember one, as you said that, who, as it turned out, had a legitimate gift. She had given me specific dates and times and a very accurate description of somebody, and like, just the information that she gave was right on. As it turned out, it didn't seem real in the moment because it was just weird. But she was one of those people who's like, oh, I see dark energy around you, and we're going to need to we're going to need to do candles, and you're going to need to pay me all this stuff. And I'm like, no, sorry, but no. That's why, like, there was another woman I had worked with where she uncovered a block because she did not like past life regression stuff. It's hard to describe it, but she'd uncovered something that was holding me back. And she goes, let's see if it's a vow or an agreement. But long story short, she helped me clear it right then and there in the same session, and
Yep.
the story's in my book, actually. It's something that she's like you. She has integrity. And that's one of the things I've always respected and admired about you is that you don't pretend, you do more than you advertise. Like, for example, I know, in some of our readings, that spirits have come through in a medium sort of way, but you have never once put yourself out there like that. And when I asked you about it, you said you wouldn't because you didn't feel confident enough in your skills in that area yet because
Yeah.
it was still developing. And I like that to me just says so much because there are a lot of people who they get a new skill and it doesn't matter if they've been doing it for a day or whatever or 10 years, they're out there trying to sell it, and that's not who you are.
No, exactly. I mean, for me, I I wouldn't want somebody to have an experience or pay for something that they're not getting what they want. My job, the way I see it, I'm here to help people. I'm here to guide people. I'm here to put them on the right path or answer questions or just give them the guidance they need. I wouldn't feel comfortable, you know, giving something to someone that I know is either one, untrue, or two, that I'm not really experienced or qualified in that area to do that. I wouldn't want that done to me. It's a really shitty way to behave. And I think, to be honest, there's enough of crap in the world that, we don't need people doing stuff like that.
Certainly not. Do you ever get messages for clients outside of readings?
Oh God, yes. Oh God, yeah. Right. Um, Again, Fred, bless him. So, and I've had I've had a few. Just trying to think of the memorable ones. Okay, so there was one when I was working before, and that was so a few years back, my previous job, and I had to get up at stupid o'clock in the morning. It was great fun. And he came in, and it was about 4:30 in the morning. My alarm had gone off. I was like kind of half semi-human, still half asleep, hadn't had any caffeine, stumbling around, and he suddenly said to me, I can't remember who it was now. It was a friend of mine. Oh, their boiler's about to break. I'm like, what? And I'm still kind of my slightly dazed. Yeah, their boiler's about to break. You need to message them and tell them it's fucking 4:30 in the morning. I'm not messaging with this. Go away. Leave me alone. Like, I'm just trying to be helpful. Well, fuck you then if you don't want the info. And literally, and I'm just like, what the fuck? And so on the way to driving to work, and he's still going on about their bloody boiler. You need to tell them about their boiler. I mean, you need something needs to be done. I'm like, dude, it's like 6:30 in the morning now. What? I can't. But just going to randomly message my friend. I mean, to be fair, she's my friend. She's known me for years. She knows that I'm a bit nuts in a nice way, but still. And I did end up messaging her, and funny enough, her boiler did actually break. And he goes, "There, I told you." So
That's awesome.
I'll
Do you
have
get?
some.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I've had things like that. I've had occasions where, and that was actually, I got really emotional, that one. Lady that I was reading for, and she had, it was her father and her late fiance who had both passed not too far from one another, like time wise. Yeah. And she came over for a reading, and I was aware. So it's really weird. When I was little, I could see spirits with my eyes open. Now, as mad as this sounds, the only time I really see anything is if I close my eyes, which is probably a bit odd. I can sense, I can feel someone there, I can hear them, but I can only see when I close my eyes. And I just had this feeling. I was like, what's going on? And it was about 3 hours prior to the reading. And they'd come 3 hours before to give me messages for her.
Wow. Oh,
So
that's amazing. So those are the times where you get messages from spirits other than your guides.
yeah, yeah,
Got it.
I always get that. Now and again, if I'm particularly kind of receptive that day and their energy strong enough, then yeah. Other times it's just Fred with people's boilers. On another occasion, I was in the shower and he started on about something. Like, yeah, he has no boundaries. He has no filters. I could be in the middle of where I worked previously. I'd be in the middle of doing something, and he would just come in to tell me the most random stuff. And I'm like, dude, go away. Like, not here. Tell me. Well, if I tell you later, you're going to ignore me. He's woken me up before now to tell me stuff.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic. I think it's so cool. I think it would be great to have a guide like that, or a guide at all. I mean, I know I have guides. I'm sure they're all shaking their heads, but I just don't have any way of consciously connecting.
I can loan him to you.
You should.
You're welcome.
He's welcome anytime. I love Fred. Uh, so when you think about the readings you've done, what's the craziest story or something that blew your mind in terms of information that you were given that was later confirmed?
Okay. I've had a few. And I'm sure I'm going to think of more afterwards. But one of the biggest ones that stood out for me, yeah, there's two. The biggest one so far that stood out for me. So I went to Hong Kong in 2019. So went to Hong Kong, and I was doing readings there because I do readings in London, in Spain. I've done in Mexico, Hong Kong. So yeah, I travel around. And I read for a particular client, and I kept being given antivirus. It was being said to me, new business antivirus. I'm like, okay. Now he actually worked in IT. So in my head, I've gone, oh, computers, IT, any IT person's probably going to be very angry at me. I don't know the difference between hardware and software. I apologize. But there was this kind of antivirus. And I'm like, oh, well, it's not too dissimilar to what he was doing before. So, and my guide keeps going, no, new business, antivirus, not the same as before. So I'm like, okay. So I've given him the message. So he's kind of looked at me a bit confused, and he was like, okay. I'm like, well, that's what I'm being given, but I got it for the following year. Anyway, that was that. And he contacted me in, I can't remember if it was March or April of 2020. And he phoned me up and he said, you booked a reading, and he went, right, do you remember last year you said to me I was going to have a new business and antivirus? I said, to be fair, I can't remember what I had for dinner last week. My memory is atrocious. I do need to clarify that. A lot of people go to me, do you remember what you said to me last year? I'm like, I'm so sorry. I can't remember what I had for dinner like last week. My memory's just, according to Fred, I have early onset Alzheimer's. I think he's just being an asshole, but um, so this guy goes to me, do you remember that I said that? Sorry, that you said that. And I went, no. And he said, you said to me, new business, antivirus. I went, okay. He said, well, I did start a new business. He said, it wasn't anything to do with the computer stuff. He said, but I was selling antibacterial hand gel and face masks. And then it hit me
Wow.
like, oh shit, coronavirus, antivirus. And we both started laughing. But
That's amazing.
so it was something that in my brain, I'd logically gone, oh, it's this and this. And it was something completely different. And it wasn't until the following year he told me, I was like, oh shit.
Well, he probably did the same thing in fairness, because that was pre-pandemic. So why would he be thinking about, antiviral or antibacterial hand lotion? Um, so what explanation would you offer for why, okay, it sounded like in the moment he was saying no new business antivirus, but
Uh-huh.
why wouldn't he come out? And this is not a confrontational question, Fred, just, but like, what explanation would you offer for why he wouldn't say, nah, you're thinking of it all wrong?
So there are certain things, it's a bit of an interesting one, and it's a really good question. There are certain things that, one, they're not allowed to tell us.
Okay.
Two, there are things that are still kind of in the process of evolving or developing. So they can give you guidance, but they haven't seen the final outcome, so to speak. And three, some of the things they just don't know. So, as mad as that sounds, Actually, I can give you the perfect example. So where you're
Okay.
currently at, you're quite high up from what I can see
Right.
from the windows. Right. So I'm ground level. I'm not going to open the windows because the curtains, as much as this is a very lovely area, there are some crazy people in London. So I don't want to come face to face with anyone. So if, for example, there was a car accident, I'm going to use that about 3 streets away, and I look out my window, I'm not going to see anything. But the building you're in, you're quite high up. So if there was an accident 3 streets away, chances are you're going to see it.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes
So
sense.
it's not that, and I don't mean to say you're not more evolved than me. I don't mean that rudely, but I mean as in, it's not that they're not, you know, more evolved than us. In some occasions, they're in a better position to see things than we are. So they're in kind of a higher position to see stuff, but they may not see everything play out.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
And
Fair
sometimes
enough.
we're also not ready. Sorry.
Pardon?
And sometimes we're also not ready. Sometimes they
Yeah.
don't always give us information because we're not ready to receive it, or we won't understand it, or we don't want to understand it. That's the other one as well.
Got it. Anything else that Fred or any of your other guides would want to share, clarify, anything?
Let's have a look. He's actually he's really enjoyed this, by the way, other than when I said that he was very old. Um
I love connecting with Fred, so tell him I said thank you.
I will do. He's the spirit guides. One thing that I will share as well, which he's asked me to share, is absolutely everybody has spiritual abilities. Um, some people we're born with it more awake. Some people it develops whether they've actively practiced it, they've done meditation, mindfulness, etc., or something has happened to kind of jolt that awake. Um, the reason that I want to give that message from him as well is twofold. One, because there's a lot of people at the moment who are feeling very uncertain, especially in the times we're living in. And there's now more than ever, there's a very big shift energetically. So a lot of people are feeling, it's kind of hard to put into words. It's like having this sort of sensation of something's going on behind the scenes, but not quite sure what it is, and feeling emotionally quite overwhelmed, quite burnt out, quite
Mhm.
what the hell's going on. Um, the reason that I wanted to bring that up, because the spiritual side, especially, developing and evolving a lot in a lot of people. So anyone who's feeling that, because there's a big wave of it at the moment, of a lot of people getting overwhelmed with emotion or feeling quite awake to things and going, what the hell's going on? The trick is to go inside. It's about finding your inner peace. Everybody has spirit guides. Everybody has the ability to connect. It's about finding that inner peace and that stability. So whether it's through meditation, whether it's through just finding that time to have that kind of stillness to go, no, I'm going to reconnect with myself. There's every single person has that ability, and it's a need to kind of, especially with how things are at the moment, it's just being able to go back in, kind of go inside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can
Hard, easier to
you can ask your guides.
say. Oh, go ahead. You can
Sorry.
ask. No, I was just going to say it's easier to say than it is to do sometimes. But you were saying about you can ask your guides.
100%. So it is easier to say than do. But I feel it's quite important that people remember the strength that they have. People are a lot stronger than they give themselves credit for. They're a lot more capable than they give themselves credit for. And pretty much everybody has that inner voice, has that intuition. that when they're feeling a bit stuck or a bit lost, you can ask your guides, you can tune in with yourself. There's that side of it as well. So it's being able to connect spiritually. And it's when you start getting the practice in, it's easy to do, but it is something that's very important. So I just wanted to put that out there in case anyone who's listening to this goes, do you know what, I have been feeling really overwhelmed recently and I feel like I can't put it into words, and emotionally I've been like, they're not going mad, they're just picking up on a kind of collective energy. And it's important to recognize that it's something external, and when you're feeling a bit of a loss, you go inwards.
Yeah, you explained that really well. I like that.
Does that make sense, or have I
Yeah,
explained that a bit weird?
no, you explained it really well. I love it. What does Fred ever warn you about people not to read for?
Oh god, yes. Yep. Yeah, he does. Do you know what, there are times I've ignored his warning and lived to regret it. So I mean, everyone's different. As I said, you've got really good people, you've got really bad people, you've got some really lovely ones, and then you've got the kind of the ones in between. I can give you an example. I'm just trying to find a way that I can explain this so that if she listens to it, she doesn't identify herself and ends up suing me, just in case. I had somebody come to me for a reading, and this was where I used to work before, where I subcontracted. And she came in and she was really defensive from the get-go, sat down, kind of giving it all this. And I thought, So anyway, she sat down and Fred automatically was like, oh no, not reading for her. I'm like, okay, she hasn't done anything. Just chill, let's see, just give her the benefit of the doubt. So I introduced myself and said, oh, have you had a reading before? Just, so then I can explain how I work. So she goes, well, you're the fucking psychic, you tell me.
Oh, so rude.
And I'm thinking, yeah, no. So Fred's like, yeah, fuck that, not reading for her. So he's got really annoyed. So I looked at him and I'm like, right, that attitude's not going to work with me. I'm asking you so I can explain how I work. So she said, well, like I said, you're the psychic, you tell me. And it was this kind of, and I'm like, do you know what? I'm not reading for somebody who's got that kind of attitude. You're being rude for no reason. You're being defensive. But I don't want to connect with you. And I sent her upstairs for a refund. She didn't want the refund. She wanted me to read for her and told me she was testing me. I'm like, no, you don't test me. I already had to pass various tests to work here. You're not going to test me, because that's not how it works. I'm not doing it. And that's again another point for readers. It can be a bit of a soft spot for some of us. I completely get people are skeptic, as I said before, completely understand that. But when people come in with that kind of attitude, what happens is it puts a barrier up, and then it's very hard for the reader to connect energetically with the other person. So I sent her off. She got a refund. And about a week or so later, my colleague who was upstairs phoned me and he goes, all right, Nadia, you've got a telephone call coming through for a reading. And I instinctively knew that it was the woman that I told her I wasn't going to read for. And I was like, yes, the woman from the other week. And he went, no, different name, different number. I'm like, I'm telling you, it's her. Anyway, sure enough, call comes through, answer the call, and it's her. And I'm like, you were the one I told I wasn't going to read for last week, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm really sorry, and blah, blah, blah. And so she starts apologizing and that she was having a really hard time and so on. And Fred was like, nope, I am not reading for her. So I'm like, look, come on, she's apologized. Let's just, let bygones be bygones. And the response I got was, on your head be it. And I thought, ooh, ominous. Okay. So her, and I can completely understand now why he didn't want to read for her. Her question was along the lines of, she believed her husband had a friend and she thought there was something a bit more there, and they owned a particular pet between them. The pet was a bit too large to have in your house. I'm not going to give much more information than that, so I'm not identified with what I'm saying. And she was very upset at this friendship between the two of them and wanted to know that if she poisoned and killed the pet, would that be an ending? Yeah. Would that be an ending to her husband and the friend? Yeah, I probably should have given a disclaimer before I stated that one. So sorry about that.
No,
So
wow.
yeah, I won't repeat my response because even though I swear that's probably like no. So yeah, there's times where he's warned me, or there's also been times where I haven't been able to help someone, or so there's either say something psychological, like I said before, so you signpost them to the right person. I have had a couple of cases where there's been, I don't want to use the term entity, but let's say a very kind of dark energy around a particular individual that's either attached itself or is, and I'm not, it's way above my pay grade to try and communicate with that. So I'd rather, again, not connect with that.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Do you have time for a couple more questions?
Yes, of course I do.
Oh, great. Okay. No, that's really interesting, really helpful. So the couple of things that I was thinking about, one that I want to go back to, because this was on my mind before and I forgot to ask it. What if, and this one's for Fred, obviously, what are the biggest misconceptions about the lives where he spent? Because you had mentioned that he had, it seemed like he had lived in Mesopotamia. It wasn't just a guide to somebody who was living there. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions around the lives that he spent versus what we believe about those periods of history? Anything he wants to share?
That's
I don't know
actually,
if I asked that way, but
let me ask him. People were far more spiritual back then, he's just said to me.
wow,
Okay. Far more spiritual.
no iPhones.
No, no TikTok. No. Sorry. Oh, oh dear. Right. People were far more spiritual back then. Um, they had more of an awareness of self and awareness of others. They were more evolved as well. I don't know why I want to give you this because he's just showing me. I feel the civilization itself was more advanced, but on a soul level. So spiritually, on a soul, like kind of soul family connections, understandings of one another, empathy, there was a lot more of that.
It sounds like Native American stuff because what I've read about Native Americans, they were very in tune.
Yeah. But these were, again, similar, but I'm being shown that it wasn't just say in tune with their surroundings or their environment. It was also kind of with themselves, sort of almost, like the age old question of where do we come from kind of thing. It's like the way I'm being given this with them, they were very developed in that side of it. I also want to give with regards to kind of like star constellations and that side of it. They had a very good understanding of all of that. So they were far more advanced than we were, especially on a soul level,
Hmm.
on a spiritual level or a spiritual path. Um, oh Jesus, right.
I can't wait.
I'm so sorry about this one. Um, um, Jesus, right, okay, sorry. In keeping with the theme of they were more advanced, I'm being told that they also had I'm going to loosely use the term bathrooms here. They actually had kind of certain things in place. I don't mean it in like how we have like a toilet and a sink and so on, but they had stuff because I'm being told. Sorry, can I just come out with what he said? I do
Yeah,
apologize.
go for it.
I'm literally being given we didn't shit in a bucket. Was the term I've just sorry about this. Oh, Jesus Christ. Right. Okay. So they had, from what I'm being shown, there was more of a, I'm going to say more evolved in that sense. They had a bit like how we have certain rooms in the house for certain things, or you do things in a particular way, or you follow a particular structure. They
Right.
had the same. So I'm being told they weren't savages.
Okay. Nice.
Sorry about this.
I love that he made it just real.
Yeah. Always had to revolve around shit at the end of
Yeah,
it.
of course. Um, so I want to go back to the spiritual side for because obviously it's been a theme. You are obviously spiritual. If you are comfortable sharing, I'm curious what role, if any, religion plays in your life.
So I am comfortable to share that. I wouldn't class myself as somebody who is religious. Um, for the simple fact that I believe there's a lot of good things in pretty much every religion. However, I do find that there's a lot of limitations and misunderstandings about things. So a lot of mainstream religions or sort of monotheistic religions have a tendency of stripping people of their spirituality. So without naming religions here, some of them would really frown upon what I do, um, and they'll class it as all kinds of awful things. And really, what we're doing is we're just receiving messages through energy. It's everything's energy. Um, so for me, yes, there are good points in religion with regards to loving one another, forgiveness, that side of it, looking after one another. But my problem with that lies in the restrictions, stopping people from developing more spiritually because you're told that it's bad, or you have to follow a particular path and sort of particular instructions, otherwise something bad's going to happen to you. That's where I have issues. So I like a lot of the Buddhist teachings, for example, because it's more, again, there's more of the enlightenment side of it. It's about looking after one another. There's, for me, it's more being kind to one another. I don't need a religion to tell me what's right or wrong, if that makes sense.
Exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. Uh, what haven't I asked you that I should have asked you?
Oh, that's a good question. So we've covered a lot. I think we've covered
Yeah,
religion, we've covered spirituality, we've covered.
bodily functions.
Yep. Maybe did we cover the reading itself and kind of what you should prepare for?
Oh, that would be, yeah, I would love to, if you have time to share it, that'd be great.
Of course. So with regards to readings themselves and what you should expect, what you should prepare for, things like that. So as I said before, number one, biggest thing, come in with an open mind. Because if you come in defensive, if you come in kind of blocked off, we're not going to connect energetically. Number two, you may find on some occasions some readers can't connect with people. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that person. It's just sometimes our energies are kind of, they're not compatible, so we don't read one another. Another thing to remember as well, so readings, a lot of people come in when they're having particular situations that they need help or guidance, but sometimes people just want to know what's going on and what to expect. If you have anything in particular that you want information to or you want answers to, don't be afraid to ask those questions and be open to receive the messages that you get, because sometimes you may get messages that you didn't necessarily either want to hear, or so it's very important about keeping that open mind and knowing that, again, this is guidance. So a reading, the idea behind it is to say to you, okay, well, if you take path A, this is what's going to happen and this is what's waiting for you. If you take path B, this is what's going to happen and this is waiting for you. So ultimately, each person has free will. We can decide what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. But the idea behind it is we get to give you a glimpse of the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're trying to make decisions, sometimes you can't make that decision if you haven't got all of the pieces of the puzzle. So
Okay.
it's very much having that open-mindedness. If there's certain things you really want answers to, come and ask.
Yeah. One thing that people should be aware of is the fact that time does not exist in the spirit world. Talk for a second about how that plays a role with the information that you receive.
Right, yeah, that's actually a very, very good one. Thank you for reminding me of that. So time is a human construct. Spirit, bless them, do their best to give us information and to give us the timings, because it's more of a human construct. 80 years for us is about 5 minutes for them. So everything's kind of happening on a continuum. Past, present, and future are happening kind of all at the same time. Sounds a bit of an odd thing to say. So bless them, up there they'll turn around and go, oh, this is going to happen in April, and actually it's happened in July. Or this is going to happen in November, and actually it happened in June. So there are times they can be a bit more precise and they can get it spot on, but timings are notoriously difficult. I actually know a reader who, bless her, she stopped giving timings. She would give people all the information. She goes, don't ask me for timings, I'm not giving it. Because sometimes, and I can understand it, sometimes people will fixate on that and they'll go, oh, you told me this was going to happen on this date and it didn't happen on this date, and automatically then they think the message is wrong. It's not so much the message is wrong, the timing is out. So I had a reading, when was it? Must have been a few years, 2020. And I'd gone to this reader. She gave me a reading and she goes to me, right, this is going to happen by next May. I went, okay. Anyway, next May came and went. Following May came and went. 2 years later, what she told me would happen happened. So the message wasn't wrong. It was just the timing was out.
Yeah. And you and I have had that too. It was interesting because I mean, there are situations where you've told me who was going to contact me, how they were going to contact me, the week that they were going to contact me, and it was all exactly accurate. And then and I remember another situation where you gave me some information I hadn't asked for. It was just information that came through on a completely unrelated topic. And you said, just keep it in mind. And literally a year later, that happened. And so it is important for people to remember that because well, if for no other reason than they don't want to annoy Fred, when by coming back and saying it didn't happen, because it's not his fault.
So yeah, it's that is the biggest, one of the biggest problems you get. A good way of testing as well. So some people would then worry and go, well, if it hasn't happened on the timing you gave me, then it means that it won't. No, if the reader's giving you specific information that they couldn't have known, that was resonated with you, that's made sense, and they're giving you a validation. So sometimes, and you can ask readers for validations as well. So for me, I had a case once. This woman came to see me for a reading,
Mm.
and I started doing her reading, and I had the most awful pain in my toe, like indescribable pain. All of a sudden, I'm like, "What the hell was that?" And it was like agony. And I stopped the reading and I looked at her and I went, "Have you done something to your toe? Or have you hurt it?" And she was like, "Yeah, I have." I was like, "Right, okay, why?" She said to me, well, actually, she'd broken her toe about, I think it was about 2 months prior. She'd been washing the floors and slipped and kicked the coffee table and broke her toe. And it was the same toe that I was getting pain in.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, that's bizarre. But my guide had given me that to show me that I'd connected with her. So you can get things like that, which would be a validation for you to go, okay, the message is correct, but the timing is out. That's
interesting.
also one of Fred's favorite things of giving me physical pain of the person I'm tuning in with. Yeah, it's great fun, especially if the person's hungover.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Spiritual empath. Well, you picked up on a woman who was pregnant one time, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Funnily enough, that was so I had a reading with her, and she turned up at my house and she sat down, and I started doing the reading and I started feeling really queasy. And I was like, oh, that's odd. Anyway, so it carried on and I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. So I had stopped the reading. I went up and I was really feeling rough. And anyway, I came back down, I sat down and I looked at her and I was like, you're not pregnant, are you? She was like, no, I don't think so. So what? And I was like, and they tried for a child and nothing had happened. And I'm like, well, if you're not, that's coming really soon. And I kept being given a little boy. Anyway, sure enough, she messaged me a couple of weeks later and she goes, oh, by the way, you were right, I am pregnant. I'm like, oh, thank God for that. That's what that feeling was. So yeah, she had a little boy as well.
Nice. That's got to be so rewarding for you. I love it.
It really is. It's so, for me, when I get messages come through and it's things that I know that my client, for example, has wanted for a long time and it happens for me, there's no better feeling than that. There's no better feeling than going, something that I saw that was going to happen has come in and it's given them exactly what they wanted. So yeah, that for me is the best part of doing my job.
Good for you. What other services or workshops do you offer?
So I offer spiritual development classes. So I've just started to expand out into that. So again, teaching people how to not only kind of read tarot and oracle cards, but meditation, mindfulness, tuning in with themselves, learning how to communicate with their spirit guides, teaching them psychometry, remote viewing. So it's pretty much, it's a very intense course in the sense that there's a lot that you learn. Not intense as in, like full on, like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. And so I've got different workshops with that. I also teach manifesting, so how manifestation and mindfulness works as well. And I'm also branching out into teaching meditation. So how to meditate, mindfulness, how to sort of overcome blockages that we can get. So when you lead really stressful lives or you live in certain like cities, energies in cities, I'm going to use London as an example, is absolutely horrendous. And you come out of it and you think, Jesus Christ, like I wouldn't get away. Um, Meditation is something that I found has kept me really grounded and it's really helped a lot. So the classes that I'm designing are for people who have either never meditated before or have meditated for quite some time. So there's a mix there. So people who've never meditated, teaching them how to do it, guiding them through it. The ones who have meditated before, I help them to develop that further. So we then open up more channels with it. We open up more spirituality to it, how to reach theta state, transcendental meditation. So lots of different types.
Wow, that's exciting. I love it. Yeah, and having been through one of the meditations that you had shared, the guided meditation, I can definitely vouch for it being powerful. So that's great. What's the best way for people to reach you?
My website. So I have a website and there's a link on there. So for example, if someone wants to book a reading, they can book through there. So my email address is Nadia at 5elementsuk.com.
Okay, and that's Nadia at and then the number 5 elements uk.com.
That's it.
Terrific. This has been an absolute pleasure. I love talking to you. I love connecting with you and Fred. It always
Thank you
makes me
so
smile.
much.
And I know, just on behalf of a lot of people I know, I just want to say thank you because there's a lot of people I'm sure who have questions and legitimate questions because, like you said, people are skeptical for a reason. There's a lot of idiots out there, but you don't happen to be one of them, fortunately. And so I couldn't be more pleased. Now, if people have questions, because I was thinking it would be fun to do a follow-up session, would you be open to that if people submitted questions?
I would love to do that.
Yeah,
More.
and we'll say, yeah, general type questions, not, if they have a specific question about their own situation, obviously they should book a reading. But if they have questions about, what do you think about, the Akashic records versus palm reading versus whatever, that
100.
yeah. Right.
100%. Yeah, I'm more than happy if you want to do anything in the future with regards to any questions or any type of anything spiritual wise, any sort of guidance that's needed or questions around it or how they can develop that more. Or more than happy.
Right. And at some point, you and I have talked about it. I do want to put together a weekend workshop where, we can collaborate, because I think that would be fantastic. And I know people would get a lot out of it.
I
So,
would love to do that. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Obviously, the only thing that I didn't say, the only thing I can't give, I'm afraid, are lottery numbers. That I would, if I could do that. So many people have said that to me. They're like, I can ask a question here. Who's going to win the races, or what's that? Mate, if I knew that. But yeah, any other questions? Happy to answer.
oh, that's fantastic. Okay, I am going to stop the recording. Stay on, because I would like to say goodbye. But yeah, I really appreciate this. It's super fun.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
It's all about trying to make ends meet. Staring